Hi there, my name is Akko. I'm a musician and a music producer from Wexford in Ireland. And today I want to talk about this. This is my favourite band, We Free Kings, from Edinburgh in Scotland, performing on Scottish TV in 1987. Not only were they my favourite band, I also got to know them. And in 1987, when I was only 19 years of age, I got to travel around Ireland with them. So, I first heard We Free Kings in my friend Noel's bedroom in Enniscorthy. He'd taped a song off the radio that BP Fallon had played. The song was called Brilliant. We thought it was called Feel Like a Clown because the chorus went, I feel like a clown around here, but we later found out that it was called Brilliant. And the reason BP Fallon played them was because Mike Scott from the Waterboys had said that they were his favourite band. And we were Waterboys fanatics, so anything Mike Scott liked, we liked. And then the first time I seen them was in the Bagot Inn in Dublin, which was this amazing old venue in Dublin. I think it must have been 1986, the first time I seen them. And I believe Joe, the singer, was on crutches. And I remember him hitting Seb, the guitar player, with his crutches. But anyway, soon after that, I moved to Cork. And the next time they played in Dublin, I think they announced from the stage that they needed somewhere to stay. So my friend Vincent, who was at the gig, said, went to them afterwards and said, well, come and stay in my house. And the next time I went to Dublin, they were recording their album in Windmill Lane. And me and Vincent went down and we hung out with them in Windmill Lane for a few hours, which is because I think I was like 18 maybe at the time. So that was, kind of amazing to be in Windmill Lane where, U2 had recorded and people like that. It was a really famous recording studio. And then I went back to Cork and they needed somewhere to stay in Cork. So they got my address somehow and they arrived. They arrived at my house in the middle of the night and all piled in and slept on my kitchen floor. And I went to the gig, to the gig they played in Cork the next night. And then I went off and that was kind of it. I didn't hear or see anything about them for a good few months. I was still living in Cork. And then in April of 1987, they came to play again in Cork. And I can't remember. I know exactly what happened. I know what happened. They came to play in Cork, they went again. And then I knew they were playing in Waterford the next weekend. So I basically just ran away from Cork and ran away with We Free Kings, like running away with the circus. And they were staying in this little cottage up in a place called Laytown in County Louth. And they, so I ended up living with them there for a couple of weeks and, going to a few of the gigs. And playing in the boxing club in Drogheda. This.
Try harder to stand, and we love to stand. Once upon a time in the hell of this city, wild colonial boy, born beside me, yeah, born beside me. city.
So that shadowy figure on the right-hand side wearing the hat is me, 19 years of age, living the dream, playing kazoo in a rock and roll band. So as you can see, quite chaotic, a bit of a crazy energy. I thought they were like, I mean, that I presume they were folk musicians because they used all that, that they were, big into folk. But I remember Joe, the singer, telling me that he actually hated folk music. And I was kind of intrigued by this. And it turned out they were punk rockers. Kind of like myself. I feel I'm a punk rocker. And even though I don't look like one, but I do. I have a kind of a punk heart. So it seemed at the time that they were just going to stay in Ireland forever, but I think like money, finances, I think they almost bankrupted themselves living in Ireland. They'd stayed for maybe 2 months longer than they intended to stay, and they were picking up gigs as they went along. They were playing, they played like graduation balls and some college down the country somewhere, and eventually they had to go back to Edinburgh. And so I eventually ended up living in Edinburgh for a while and hanging out with them a little bit there. And then when eventually I went to London and then came back to Ireland. And not long after I got back to Ireland, Joe, the singer, moved to Dublin. And so I used to go and hang out with him. We became quite good friends. And then strangely enough, he ended up living in Wexford Town, which is not too far from where I live. And we became very, very close, very good friends. And it was kind of amazing to me because, to me it was almost like hanging out with Elvis as far as I was concerned too, because Joe was like a big musical hero of mine. And there I was, I made some music with him, and some of it sounded a bit like this. So I'm not a big music snob guy. I don't think that, if somebody else has heard of a band that I like, that, I immediately have to stop liking them. But that, that's a subject for a whole other video. But I think, over the years, there's no band I've gone back to as much as We Free Kings. They do something to me. I don't know what. And the fact that I got to know them, was just a kind of a bonus. That their music still really just, infects me. I mean, like, what's not to like about this?
Just around, and it's only Jesus all around. It's only Jesus all around. It's only Lord, we get right. It goes away.
Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this little short video about We Free Kings. If you do like what you heard, down there in the description, I'm going to post a link that will lead you to a Dropbox folder that contains 35 We Free Kings songs. They vary from live stuff to some of their recordings. I mean, and check out their version of Run, 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 the Velvet Underground song. It's one of the greatest cover versions I've ever heard in my life. Anyway, see you next time. Bye-bye.